covering climate, weather, and the industrial enterprise from Penn State Meteorology. Here is Up in the Air.
Welcome to another episode this week of Up in the Air. My name is Logan Westrope.
And I'm Mike Susko.
So Mike, over the past week we've had some warmer spring-like weather that affected us here on campus, but we kind of returned back to winter over the weekend, and I think Chris is going to have some good news for us for this coming week.
I hope he does. I love the warmth, so I really wanted him to tell us that we're going to be on a little bit of a warmer pattern, but we'll have to wait and see. But we also have for you this show stories on the Olympics, road salt, and Galaxy. All that and more, but first, here's Update in the Air. Last February, scientists discovered a star system named TRAPPIST-1, located 40 light-years away. It contains 7 Earth-sized planets that orbit an ultra-cool dwarf star and is between 5.4 to 9.8 billion years old, twice the age of our solar system. Scientists need to know the age of the star system to determine the probability of life being sustained. If the star system was young, the star would have frequent release of high-energy radiation, known as flares. These flares can destroy a planet's atmosphere and allow radiation to hit the surface, killing life as we know it. The other side of that coin is older stars do not have as frequent flares. This allows the planets to maintain their atmosphere longer, periods of time, and possibly support life. Scientists also determined that 3 planets within TRAPPIST-1 are located in the Goldilocks zone, a zone where planets are far enough from the star to support life. Scientists are eager to learn more about TRAPPIST-1 as the possibility of it sustaining life continues to improve.
Scientists are looking to mine laundry wash water in order to prevent the metal silver from being released into the environment. Their goal will not to make a big income from the silver, but one to catch it before it can affect the wildlife. Fabrics have nano-sized bits of silver already in them to help fight against the growth of odor, which ends up giving way to bacteria. The chemists already have a way to extract the silver from the water. The technique would be to capture the silver in the wash water and recycle it for numerous amounts of uses. In one wash load, Tabish Nawaz, an environmental engineer at the University of Massachusetts, measures the amount of silver for one person as about 2 grams per person per day. Multiply that by the U.S. population and get 1.4 million pounds of silver. Keeping the silver out of the water in ecosystems, for example, would help protect the growth of the aquatic embryos of developing fish. Nawaz states that in order for this project to be successful, everyone needs to be on board.
As the average temperature of the Earth continues to climb, many animal and plant species will have to migrate to higher latitudes in search of cooler temperatures. This is not the case for all, though. Researchers at the University of Washington, Seattle studied geographic locations of about 300 plant species in 7 topographical distinct areas for 40 years. These areas included Western Sierra to the eastern Rocky Mountains and the foothills of northern Canada. It is the most extensive study of its kind to date, as they then compared their geographic data with changing climate conditions like temperature, rain, and snowfall. To much surprise, over 60% of the plants shifted the distribution downward toward warmer, lower elevations, despite significant climate warming across the area. Team leader and plant ecologist Mylene Harsh said initially they thought there was something wrong with their analysis. Species were expected to shift upward towards cooler temperatures, but they redid the analysis and got the same results. The downhill movement of the plants was likely caused by the changes in the precipitation that accompanied the warming temperatures. The plants in the areas that experienced less rain and snow at high elevations were those that shifted downward toward wetter climates. It's a double-edged sword, though, Harsh states. As temperatures increase, more water will be needed. While scientists can't monitor every species, identifying the factors that are responsible for environmental climate change, we can predict the effects and the consequences of them.
Many of us have been watching the Winter Olympics that are currently going on this year. Though, with climate changing ever so quickly, how will this affect former cities that host the Winter Olympics? Towards the end of the century, more than half of the former hosts cities will be a lot warmer, and the chances of seeing less snow will be a lot likely. And with skiing being a huge part of the tourism industry, many places could lose a lot of money as the warmer temperatures will shorten their time frame for skiing. With rapid rates of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the study states that 8 former Winter Olympic sites would be unable to host the Games by 2050, while 9 wouldn't qualify by 2080. Temperatures could rise anywhere between 3 and 5 degrees Fahrenheit by 2050 and anywhere from 3 to 7 degrees by 2080.
The world's forests are disappearing at an alarming rate. Logging, farming, livestock ranching, and infrastructural development have caused millions of acres of forest to be cut down over the years. The decline in forests is putting strain on some animal species who call the forest their home. As more and more forests are destroyed, the number of forest islands will increase, which are isolated areas of forest. Animals that live on these islands are in danger of becoming extinct locally because the diversity pool is very minimal. Ecologist Thomas Lovejoy conducted an unusual experiment in the 1980s. As loggers were getting ready to chop down the areas of the Amazon rainforest, he asked them to leave untouched several small islands to see how the animals would respond. Even in the largest patch, about 250 acres, the number of bird species declined by half within 15 years. After these unsettling results, conservationists began planting small corridors of trees that linked the forest, and this ended up allowing some populations to survive 13 times longer than they would with the forest islands. Conservationists are happy with the results, but warn that the key to making the corridors work is the local people being involved and committed to taking care of them as much as possible.
For every occasion of snow this winter, road salt has been placed on streets before the start of the wintry weather. Though scientists say there are hidden dangers of this salt, as it doesn't dissolve into thin air like many of us think. The remaining sodium and chloride ions get absorbed usually within plants or consumed by wildlife. When snow melts and the rain washes the salt down the drain, these pieces of salt travel into our ecosystem, affecting rivers and streams. Deer and moose are studied to be drawn towards salt-covered roads, according to the study. Freshwater scientist at the University of Wisconsin, Hilary Dugan, says we are unfortunately ending up with a loss in biodiversity. Dugan stresses the use of putting down less salt for snow events, helping wildlife and the environment down the road.
Welcome back to the show.
Now we have a feature by Rob Johnson and Lydia Knox on effective weather communication.
When the weather's at its worst, effective communication needs to be at its best.
But communication is a double-sided coin. It's imperative for not only the speaker, but also the listener.
Senior social scientist and risk communication expert Dr. Gina Esco says it all comes down to trust.
Effective communication of weather information is kind of a combination of risk communication with a bit of marketing, right? So you want to have trust in the brands.
Dr. Esco also speaks about the challenges TV meteorologists encounter when trying to present crucial information in limited time.
We're taking what is complex science and showing sometimes rather challenging graphics. Do we have enough time to actually convey what they need in depth?
Time is an issue, but it becomes arduous when severe weather is near. For example, a hurricane's cone of uncertainty probably means something different than what you think.
For something like the cone of uncertainty, a hurricane track graphic, we draw this sort of big white cone-shaped blob. And we expect people to understand that the center of circulation or the eye of the hurricane, it'll be somewhere within the white blob. But do people really know that because of probability, you have a 2 out of 3 chance of that center of circulation being inside and 1 out of 3 for being outside? Do people really know that?
And do people really believe it'll affect them?
I would want them to assess their risk more fully. I would want them to listen to their broadcast meteorologist. I would want them to hear whether their area is at risk and whether they should take actions. I'm hoping that optimistic bias that it won't happen to me, it won't happen to my town, sort of what optimistic bias is about. I'm hoping that would be minimal and that they would listen to the actions.
Weather broadcast seems simple on the surface, but there's more complexity than meets the eye.
When you look at a duck, for example, I know this might seem really weird to think of a duck, but go to a pond and look at a duck and look how beautifully it floats on top of the water. If you put a camera underneath the water, they're paddling like crazy, right? It's not, that simple movement isn't easy. And that's kind of what the weather communication system is trying to do. We're trying to make it look really smooth. We're smooth, we got this, we know a lot. But my gosh, when we look at the atmosphere and the way everything works, there's nothing about our communication that's easy. It's incredibly complex.
Welcome back to the show. So Mike, over the past weekend we had a big event here that happens on campus every February, and that is Thon, and a lot of people went on campus to the BJC in order to support kids to raise money for cancer. Did you get a chance to go this weekend?
Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to go. I had a lot of work I had to do as well, but I did catch it on the 46 live stream. So I was watching Thon. The favorite part though, I have to say, was the water gun fight with the kids. I do wish I was there for that because, I mean, come on, who doesn't love a good water gun battle? But unfortunately, I did not get to go. What about you?
This weekend I actually went on Friday for a few hours, and Saturday I went for a few hours as well, and then the rest of it I watched from the live stream, especially as we went into the Final Four, and I was able to watch where they did the countdown, and they announced how much money we raised in $10.1 million, which is really great, and all these kids are going to be using this money for great cause. And now we're going to throw it over to Chris Landolfi, who's in the studio giving us our update on the climate wall, as Vivian Rennie is currently has lost her voice from Thon this weekend.
Yeah, that's what Thon will do to you, especially if you do attend for over 40 hours, which Vivian did, all standing, but obviously for a great cause. So I am filling in for her. I hope you guys aren't too upset to see me, but here's our climate info for February 22nd. Average high 39, now that's a good 2 degrees warmer than our average high for last Thursday. Our average low 23, and our records not going to be flirting with records too much this weekend like we did this week. 67, the record high set back in 1997, and 5 below the record low set back in 1963. Good news is there, we also won't have to worry about that record low. Now our temperature outlook for the period February 27th through March 5th. Below normal conditions are going to continue for parts of the west as a trough sets up out there. That's really going to be centered along the west coast in Washington, Oregon, as well as in parts of Northern California and extending as far east as most of Montana. But that below normal temperature will really persist into much of the west throughout the Colorado Rockies. Now above normal, we'll see above normal conditions centered along the Gulf Coast, including Tallahassee, Florida, as well as the southern coast of Alabama and Mississippi, and New Orleans, Louisiana. Closer to home, though, we'll see above normal, but it won't be the heat that we've really seen this past week. Keep in mind that the average temperature is slowly rising as we are headed into the first week of March. Now, precipitation outlook has some above normal precipitation where they will need it in Southern California as well as western Arizona. Below normal precipitation centered along Colorado, the home of our very own Vivian Rennie. Then above normal precipitation once again in the Mississippi River Valley as far north as Minnesota, extending all the way down into the Gulf Coast, but closer to home, below normal persists in much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, so not as wet as the period that we're going to be entering in for this weekend and into early next week. Drought monitor, we see the drought starting to emerge in parts of Southern California as well as most of Arizona and New Mexico, but what we've been monitoring for much of the past few weeks has been this drought out in the Panhandle as well as even extending into central Oklahoma and North Texas. Now, a lot of the Mississippi River Valley has seen abundant precipitation in the past week or so, so they're starting to alleviate, and it looks like continuing into this period, they will continue that precipitation. Now, in the Northeast, don't really see dry conditions except in parts of northeastern Pennsylvania extending along the Susquehanna River. Now our snow depth, current conditions, we really see that snow depth making its mark in Montana as they got hit by a couple of big storms this past week. Really some interesting features here as we see the Snake River Valley in Idaho and the rain shadow, or in this case snow shadow, of the Cascade Mountains in Washington. A little more snowpack in the Sierra Nevada mountains. We want to see that a little more impressive for this time of year to ensure that California doesn't face a drought when it comes to spring and summertime. Now, Midwest saw a lot of snow last week, but with the warmer conditions, really seeing much of that melt here on our map. And back in the Northeast, this is all going to be melted by the time the weekend's over, at least all the stuff that we're seeing in Pennsylvania. Now, your weekend forecast, the spring-like weather continues, although it'll have a trade-off where we'll see rain for most of the weekend. The rain arrives late Friday night into early Saturday and really will persist into Sunday. But highs 52 for Saturday and 48 for Sunday. So it looks like we do have a chance to stay warm, although just make sure you have those umbrellas handy, guys.
Well, thanks, Chris, for the update. Over the next few weeks, we have spring break coming up, and I hope that we have more spring weather than winter weather as we go on our week vacation.
That's all the time we have for this week. I'm Mike Susko.
And I'm Logan Westrope. Be sure to tune us next week for Up in the Air.